There are handguns I've owned for years, and others I barely fired a dozen rounds through before moving on. But if you ask which ones made the biggest mark, it's not always the keepers. It's the pistols I discovered along the way that you should try at least once in your lifetime. Sometimes all it takes is one afternoon at the range, a friend's unexpected loaner, or a wild rental that leaves you grinning or shaking your head. This list isn't about collecting or commitment. It's about the 13 handguns I've discovered that every shooter deserves to experience at least once. Some will feel familiar, some might be way out of left field, but each one left a story that stuck with me long after I'd set it down. Stick around because the one that truly changed how I look at handguns didn't show up until nearly the end, and you'll want to see which one did it. My old Glock 19 Gen 5 has always been the workhorse I never meant to love. Back when Gen 5s first started turning up, I grabbed one mostly out of habit. No excitement, no expectation. It just felt like the kind of pistol you could trust to run dirty, ride in the truck, and take a beating at the range. I shot the hell out of it for years. It never jammed, never made excuses, never asked for anything except another magazine. A few years later, trying to chase something new, I let it go. Traded it off to a buddy, thinking I was finally done with boring. The next pistol I carried, some fancy import, locked up in the middle of a muddy range session. No backup, no fix. That same buddy handed my old Glock back, half laughing at me. I ran 200 rounds through it that afternoon, hands shaking, sweat pouring, and it never missed a beat. Every so-called upgrade I tried just sent me back to that same blocky grip and dull slide. It's not about pride or hype. It's just that the Glock 19 Gen 5 keeps proving why every shooter should put one through its paces at least once in their life. Some nights, I'd find myself at the workbench, Beretta 92 FS, stripped and clean, just turning it over in my hands. It's never been the showpiece of my safe. No wild colors, nothing that screams for attention. Years back, in a small-town pawn shop, I nearly let it go for a couple of $100 in a story I barely remember. I stood there, weighing a stack of new arrivals against that old Italian frame, thumb running along the worn grip. Something in me hesitated, and I walked out with the Beretta tucked under my arm. I've tried all the upgrades since: polymer frames, tuned triggers, guns that promise a revolution. But every time I circled back and put a magazine through the 92 FS, everything felt settled. The weight and balance, the easy cycling, the way it points. There's no drama. It just shoots the way a pistol should. I stopped chasing excitement and started trusting what just worked. Maybe I'll pass it along someday. Or maybe it'll stay at the back of the safe. A reminder that some lessons only take one range trip to learn. Try a Beretta 92 FS at least once. And if you think you know what real balance feels like, wait until you pick up the next one. Last month, I found myself at the range, watching a young shooter fumble through his first box of ammo with a rental revolver. I handed over my Ruger Mark IV, not because I thought much of it at the time, but because I remembered how simple things used to feel. Showed him the basics, watched him line up his first shot, and suddenly, everything clicked. Easy trigger, no fuss, just pure shooting. That moment did more for me than for him. While he figured out his grip, I loaded up a mag and took my own turn. The groups tightened, tension faded, and it felt like shooting had reset itself. I realized right then I'd been making it all too complicated, chasing performance, new tech, or the next best thing, when all I really needed was a pistol that made the basics fun again. That's the mark the Ruger left on me. Not every gun changes your mind for life, but every shooter should spend an afternoon with a Mark IV at least once. Sometimes you don't know what you're missing until something that simple reminds you why you started. How hard could it be? That's what I thought. Echelon box open, tools lined up, coffee still warm. 20 minutes later, I'd lost a pin, chased a spring under the fridge, and invented new curse words for every modular improvement they bragged about. By the time I got the thing back together, my hands were already tired, and the novelty had worn off. I kept telling myself the range session would pay it back. But standing there, cycling the first rounds, something just didn't land. The trigger was fine, groups were honest, recoil a bit sharper than expected, but nothing to talk about later. I watched the slide run and waited for that feeling that tells you a pistol's worth the trouble. It never showed up. Instead, what I got was a wave of dull disappointment, the kind that creeps in when a new toy turns out to be just another tool. Packed up before I was done with my ammo, left the range feeling emptier than when I started. The Echelon made it clear, shooting it once was all I needed to know exactly where my own line sits between clever features and what actually matters. Firstly, when I bought the G2C last year, I thought it was just budget junk like their G3C. Picked it up as a backup, truck gun, or just because it was dirt cheap. The first time I racked the slide, the grip felt hollow, the finish looked rough, and the action was stiff enough to make me wonder if it would even cycle a whole mag. No romance, no expectations, just a little curiosity and the urge to see what $150 could actually buy. I didn't baby it. Loaded it with the worst ammo I had, tossed it in the back seat, let it roll under the seat more than once, ran it fast, ran it dirty, ran it until my palms ached. Didn't clean it for weeks. Every time I pulled the trigger, expecting something to go sideways, it just kept firing. No jams, no excuses, just this weird, stubborn reliability that outlasted plenty of pistols twice the price. It never won me over, but that session forced me to stop laughing at cheap for good. A Taurus G2C isn't there to impress. It's there to survive. And that one brutal afternoon was all it took to finally admit it. Now, on to a pistol that brought a whole new lesson about control. 3 years back, I wouldn't have given the SIG P226 Legion a second look if my buddy hadn't tossed it my way at the range. It sat there on the bench. Gray finish, that sculpted grip, all the little details you expect on a gun with a big reputation. Honestly, I figured it was just expensive hype. Nothing that'd make me rethink the guns I already trusted. I ran a few mags through it, not expecting much. At first, it just felt solid. Trigger was smooth, controls in the right place, recoil easy to manage. Nothing about it shouted for attention, but when I set it down and picked up my usual pistol again, something felt off. The grip angle, the trigger press, even the weight. Suddenly, everything seemed a little clumsy, a little less precise. That's when it hit me. The Legion hadn't blown my mind up front, but it had quietly moved the finish line. Driving home, I caught myself replaying how every shot had landed and how my standard now felt different. The Legion didn't chase me. I ended up chasing what it did right, and that's a lesson I couldn't have gotten any other way. A couple of years back in Missouri, a buddy and I turned a lazy Saturday at the range into a head-to-head grudge match. I rolled in with my usual favorite, ready to give him hell. But he was already grinning, holding out his Canik TP9 SFX Rival like it was the golden ticket. I almost laughed. Figured he just wanted to see me humble by a flashy knockoff. We lined up side by side, swapping targets, betting on tightest groups, fastest splits, anything to keep the smack talk going. The first mag felt easy enough, smooth cycling, trigger snapping back quicker than I'd guessed. Round after round, that rival refused to miss a beat. No hiccups, no complaints, just crisp shooting and cleaner lines than I wanted to admit. The more we pushed, the more that Canik started making me sweat. My go-to pistol was holding its own, but his underdog kept landing shots that wiped the grin off my face. By the end, I wasn't just respecting the rival. I was itching for a rematch, caught off guard by a gun I'd written off before I'd even touched it. The rival taught me not to underestimate what you haven't run in the real world, but the gun that came after, that one didn't care about rivalry or pride. It showed me what happens when a pistol just fits. No drama, no games. I've carried the PDP for years, mostly out of routine. It's ridden with me on late drives, grocery runs, and plenty of nights when nothing happened at all. But a few months back, well after midnight, the dog started up, growling, pacing, hair standing up. I killed the TV, listened, and caught the faint crunch of tires outside the house, headlights sweeping the wall, engine idling way too long for a neighbor. Didn't hesitate, just reached for the PDP. Muscle memory. put my hand right where it needed to be. Grip fit, controls easy, no thought wasted. Moved through the dark with that familiar heft in my hand, heart hammering in my ears. Checking windows, back door, every shadow. Turned out to be nothing more than a lost driver, but that feeling lingered. I've shot 1,000 rounds through this gun on calm days, but nothing made its value clearer than that moment. The way the PDP just settled into my palm. No fumbling, no doubt, no second guessing. You don't appreciate that kind of confidence on the range. You earn it when there's no margin for error, and the quiet finally returns. The CZ75 SP01 earned its place with me long before I ever thought about emergencies. Not because it's flashy, and not because it's light, but because it makes everything slow down when it's in your hand. I remember one winter evening, just after sunset, when I was moving through the house doing the usual lockup routine. Lights still on outside, enough glow coming through the windows to see clearly, but quiet enough that every sound carried. I picked up the SP01 out of habit. The weight was the first thing I noticed, the way it settled instead of floating. No rush, no spike of adrenaline, just a deliberate feel, steel soaking up movement before it ever reached my wrist. The grip filled my hand in a way that made rushing feel unnecessary. Every step felt measured, controlled. Nothing happened that night, nothing needed to. But standing there, moving room to room, I realized something I hadn't fully appreciated before. Some pistols make you faster. This one makes you steadier. The SP01 isn't about reacting, it's about being ready without feeling tense. That evening shifted how I think about steel guns. You don't try one like this to feel excited. You try it to understand what calm actually feels like in your hands. There's a small shop just outside town where I've wasted more time than I care to admit. The cases rarely change. Old pump shotguns, beat-up .22s, and right in the center, the Smith & Wesson Model 29. Deep blued steel, wood grips, 6 oversized chambers staring back like a dare. Every visit, I'd drift toward it, pretending I was just killing time, when really, I was circling the same thought again. I never asked the price. Week after week, I'd lean in, trace the air around the cylinder. Imagine what it would feel like to walk out with something that unapologetic. One rainy afternoon, I finally asked the clerk to hand it over. The moment it settled into my palm, I almost laughed. The weight was shocking, heavy, slick, excessive, in a way nothing else I owned ever was. It didn't feel practical, it felt deliberate, and I never fired it. I didn't need to. Holding it was enough to tell me what kind of gun it was and what kind of responsibility it carried. I handed it back and walked out empty-handed. But the feel of that revolver stayed with me far longer than some guns I've owned for years. The next one, that one didn't let me walk away. My buddy's Staccato P had been in the range bag for months. Nothing special about the day he handed it over. I took the offer mostly out of boredom, not envy. But the minute it settled into my hand, the world shrank down to sharp checkering and slick, perfect slide. Running that gun felt like cheating. A trigger that barely needed pressure. Follow-up so fast they almost stacked on top of each other. I won't lie. For those first few magazines, all I wanted was to swap my pistol for his. No questions asked. But somewhere between targets, that feeling flipped. The Staccato was so refined it nearly erased me from the process. No rough edge, no history, no stubbornness to fight. It was flawless, but it didn't feel like mine. I found myself glancing back at my own gun, missing the quirks, the weight, the way I'd learned its moods. Handing the Staccato back, envy stuck to my fingers, but it was thinner than I expected. See, the perfect machine reminds you why you put in the work with something less polished. Want fades fast when the fit isn't real, even with a gun that does everything right. The HKUSP spent more time under the seat than any other pistol I've owned. It bounced around in the glove box, rode behind muddy boots, sat next to old receipts and half-empty oil bottles. I never babied it, never cleaned it on schedule, never once gave it the attention people claim these guns deserve. Sun-baked, rained on, dust in the barrel, didn't matter. I'd forget about it for months, then need it for a drive across the county or a last-minute walk down a muddy road, pulled it out once after a storm, still slick with condensation, and it ran through a box of hollow points like nothing had happened. Range days, field trips, bad weather, good days. Always the same result. The gun just worked. Never a hesitation, never a jam. Never made me wonder if I should have spent more or carried something fancier. I never bragged about the USP or called it my favorite. It's not the one I show to friends. But there's a cool kind of respect you build for a pistol that survives what you throw at it and keeps coming back for more. And yet, out of every gun I've run rough, there's one that's always felt like home. No drama, just a perfect fit the second I picked it up. I picked up the PX4 Storm on a whim, not looking for a keeper. It just happened to be there the day I had cash in my pocket and an empty spot in the safe. Shot it a while, didn't think much. Smooth, quirky, with that rotating barrel. It never gave me trouble, but it didn't feel special either, so I let it go. Swapped for something newer, flashier, thinking I'd never miss it. A few months later, I felt the itch for a fill-in. Couldn't shake the memory of how the PX4 just did its job. Nothing else felt right. I ended up buying another different shop. Same old feeling. Grip fits, trigger breaks, clean. Gun runs quiet and steady. Didn't love it, didn't brag, but every time I tried to replace it, I missed having it around. Gave up the fight after that. Stopped pretending it was just a placeholder. Let it claim its spot in the safe for good. Some guns never ask for attention. They just keep showing up, feeling right, no matter what else comes and goes. The PX4 Storm was never the dream, but it turned out to be the answer. And if you think that's where the list ends, the bonus pistol I tried next rewrote the rules one more time. He finally got the better of me with the FN57. I'd seen the internet debates, heard the talk about armor-piercing pistols, but it was the price tag on the ammo that kept me from jumping in. One day, I found one at a shop with a single battered box of 5.7 by 28 behind the counter. I winced, paid up, and figured I'd find out for myself if any of it was worth it. Shooting it was nothing like I expected. Light recoil, plasticky feel, rounds that seemed to snap more than bang. There's a weird satisfaction in running a gun that feels like a toy, but lands every shot dead center. Halfway through the box, I was already doing mental math on how much this experience was costing per squeeze of the trigger. By the end, I wasn't in love, but I wasn't disappointed either. The 5.7 didn't change my mind about what belongs in my safe, but it scratched an itch I'd been carrying for years. Worth it? Who cares? The real value is walking out with a story, and the grin that comes with trying the thing nobody else in the room had the nerve to shoot. After all these years, it's not the pistols I've kept that shaped me most. It's the ones I just tried once and never forgot. Sometimes it's the feel of a trigger, a memory of one good group, or a surprise that knocked down every expectation I had walking in. Every shooter has a story like that. The one gun you picked up, maybe only for a magazine or two, but it's still with you every time you hit the range. So, which handgun gave you that moment, changed your mind, stuck in your head, or left you wishing you had more time? Drop your own once was enough pick down below. The chase for that next unforgettable shot never really ends. I'm Steve, and if your story is better than mine, I want to hear it.